أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. We begin with one salawat. Inshallah, we'll get started in just a few more minutes. Today we're going to complete lesson 2 and work on lesson 3, but we're also going to go through the exercises that I hope you've had a chance to take a look at, inshallah. And I'd like to have as many of you participate as possible. I will sometimes ask for people to raise your hands if you know the answer. Those of you who do not raise your hands, you're probably going to be called on. So raising your hand is simply an indication for how comfortable you are. It's not an indication of who is actually going to get called on or who is not. Do not be afraid to make a very basic mistake. The biggest mistake you can make when learning a language is to try not to sound like a fool, and therefore you'll always be careful. You learn best when you make a mistake, and then it's corrected and you see how it's actually supposed to be. So, we're never going to penalize you for giving the wrong answer, even the completely wrong answer. But there is going to be some kind of penalty, and we'll have to decide what penalty it is for taking a pass and not giving an answer. So make the effort. And for those of you who are doing it for the first time, there is a lot that we are going to be covering at once. There's a lot of things you have to look at once. And even in these exercises and these examples and in the worksheet, there's some things that we haven't covered yet, but there are examples in the exercises. That's because it's not possible to go exactly in order. So don't worry about that, and inshallah it will become easier as we go through some practice examples. I am recovering from a cold, so if I sniffle through the lesson or cough or if I lose my voice, I apologize. It might actually be good for you, but we'll see how it goes, inshallah. So with that, inshallah, we can begin. Are there any questions regarding material that we've covered before we begin? Yes. Okay, sure. The first question is about i'rab, right? And I hope everybody remembers what i'rab is. So, do you remember what i'rab is?
The case.
It's called case in English. Right? What does it mean? The form or the function, right? What purpose a word is fulfilling in a sentence. And for a noun, there's 3 types. Marfu', mansoob, majroor. Marfu', one example is if you have an action, the person doing the action will be marfu', the noun that describes the person who is doing something. So if I said, Zaid came, Zaid is doing the coming. Zaid would be the subject and marfu' in that sentence. Mansoob, one example of a word that would be mansoob, is the direct object in a sentence. If I say, I fed my cat is the direct object, and that would be mansoob. Majroor, you said, is a little bit ambiguous. Well, that's because majroor is the third case, and it's used for 2 primary examples. One is prepositions, and one is a possessive phrase. And we'll talk about these, so I'm using the English right now. We'll talk about it in more detail. In fact, possessive phrase we'll talk about today. A word that owns something in Arabic will usually be in the majroor case. Right? You all know many examples of this. Rasulullah. Rasulullahi. Allah is the owner of the messenger, the one to whom the messenger belongs. And in that phrase, Allahi, it has a kasra because it's majroor. Because in this phrase, Allah is not doing something, nothing is being done to Allah, but something belongs to Allah. That's the case, or the i'rab. And one point that I should have made in a previous lesson, I did not. We cannot have a word with i'rab outside of a sentence. So there's no such thing as Zaydun. Zaydun by itself does not exist, because this tanween, the is properly a sign of i'rab. And i'rab means the function of a word in a sentence. So where's the sentence? So if I'm just naming somebody, I shouldn't say Zaydun. I should say Zayd. If there's a sentence, then I can say Zaydun, or depending on the function, it might be Zaydan, or it might be something else. So i'rab always requires a sentence. Even if the sentence is not all spoken. So if somebody asks you, what is your name? Right, you might just answer with one word, Sulaiman. But that's a sentence, because what you really are saying is, my name is Sulaiman. Right? Everybody understands that you're answering a question, and that answer conveys a complete thought, and so it's a sentence, even if it's just one word. If somebody says to Zayd, what is your name? And he says Zayd, that is a sentence. He can say Zaydun, because the meaning is Ismi Zaydun. That was one point that pertains to i'rab that should have been clarified earlier. So let us take a look to begin with the exercises to lesson 1. And that is going to be on page 7 in our textbook. Does everybody have a textbook? Right. Those of you who, as a family, might be sharing a textbook, you might want to make a photocopy of just the exercise pages, or make sure that there is a book that's close enough for everyone to see. Or what's very useful, if you have the energy for it, is to write out the question before you write the answer, because that helps you practice it. But by now, I hope everybody has been able to obtain the textbook and has been able to look at the exercises. So let's take a look at the first exercises. What you're going to notice is that it's asking you to read sentences in Arabic. And as a cruel joke, it doesn't put any vowel signs on those sentences. So it might look like it's impossible to read, but it's not. I want to remind us of a few points before we begin. When you have a basic sentence in Arabic with a subject and a predicate, both of them will be in what case? The nominative case, or marfu'. Right? So if I say, for example, Muhammadun Nabiyyun. Right? Muhammad is a prophet. That's Muhammadun Nabiyyun. Right? Both are in the nominative case. Both are marfu'. If I want to make it emphatic, meaning if I want to add emphasis, then I can add the word inna in the beginning. Does anybody remember how inna changes that sentence? No, that's ana, that means I. Inna means surely, verily, indeed. And the same sentence, Muhammadun Nabiyyun, how will that change? What will it become? Muhammadan Nabiyyun. Why is it Muhammadan now and it used to be Muhammadun? Well, here, the function of Muhammadun in this sentence is simply that something is being told about it. This word, Muhammad, we're telling that it can be described as the name of a prophet. Muhammadun Nabiyyun. Whereas the function of this word is a little bit different. Now we're giving some news about a person named Muhammad with emphasis. And when that emphasis comes with inna, it will be in the mansoob case. The subject of the sentence will be mansoob. The subject. So we'll say inna Muhammadan Nabiyyun. And if I want to change this to the past tense, Muhammadun Nabiyyun means Muhammad is a prophet. If I want to say Muhammad was a prophet, I'll use the word kana. It's a verb, kana. How will Muhammadun Nabiyyun change? Muhammadun Nabiyyun change? Muhammadun Nabiyyan. Now, Muhammad is the subject and Nabiyyan is still the predicate, but the sentence is in the past tense. There's a verb that's come in. And so the predicate will be mansoob. Kana Muhammadun Nabiyyan. In the first case, the subject changed to mansoob because this word entered into the sentence. And this word inna, which means indeed, verily, the subject of that sentence is taken to the nominative case. Arab grammarians have given some philosophical reasons as to why that is the case. But without getting into why that is the case, the short answer is that the sentence has now changed. And to indicate that this is different from this sentence, the grammatical case will change. Now, see, in this sentence, Muhammadun Nabiyyun, the relationship is directly between the subject and the predicate. But in this sentence, the relationship is not directly between Muhammad and Nabi. There is a third part of that sentence, the word inna, and the relationship of these two words, the subject and the predicate, goes through that. We're not just saying Muhammad is a prophet. We're saying that indeed Muhammad is a prophet. And so that word inna can have an effect on the sentence. The subject becomes mansoob. Kana also has an effect on the sentence, but the effect is different. The predicate becomes mansoob.
Question. This might confuse things, but I'm sorry. that inna is different than the other inna that makes it that Muhammad was in a center or in a masjid where instead of saying fi, we go inna fi.
No, it's the same inna.
The same inna?
The same inna, and it means indeed or verily,
Okay.
but then it has different usages, and we'll come to it. Right now, my point in bringing this to you is not to give you all the details of how they're used, but simply so that we can go through the exercises, because these phrases are used. There are details as to how to use these words, and we'll talk about that later. But at least now you've seen it. So if you get it wrong in the exercises, we can all make fun of you with a clear conscience. So now let's take a look at the exercises. Now when it says vocalize, what that means is that read it with the full i'rab. What I will do is, I will do the first one, and then we're going to need volunteers for all of the rest. We will begin by using volunteers who do raise your hands. And then once we get warmed up, then we'll start using random volunteers, or unwilling volunteers as well. So for the first sentence, you all recognize the number 1 in Arabic? It looks like the number 1 in English. It's on the right-hand side. دخل الرجل المدينة. Dakhala is a verb. Right? It was part of your vocabulary. He entered. Now, that verb has a doer. Entered. Who is doing the entering? That man, right? Ar-rajulu. And he's entering into something. The city. Right? And that's the direct object in Arabic. Al-Madinata. Just like in English you will say, he entered the city. The city is what is entered. It's the direct object. So we'll say Al-Madinata. Why is Ar-Rajulu mansoob? That was not meant to be a trick question. Why is Ar-Rajulu marfu'? It's marfu' not because it's a specific person, but because he's doing the entering. He's doing the action. The doer. Right? Or the subject. Al-Madina in Arabic is treated as a direct object. It is what is entered. So we'll say Al-Madinata. So you don't just read the words and say Dakhala al-rajulu al-madinatu or Dakhala al-rajula al-madinata. You have to stop and ask, okay, who is doing the action? Who is the action, or what is the action being done to? And on that basis you will choose whether it is marfu or mansoob.
Why it's not rajulun?
Whenever there is an alif lam, then there will never be a tanween. So we can never say ar-rajulun. That cannot happen.
Are we supposed to add the haraka or?
Yes. So you can add the harakat to these sentences, but the most important harakat are the ones at the end. Alright. So who is the brave soul who's going to read sentence number 2 for us? Go for it.
Kharaja an-nabi min al-Madinah.
Alright, an-nabi. Kharaja an-nabi. An-nabiyyo. Good, that's a dhamma. Min al-Madinah. There's the word min. Min is a preposition. So you'll say min al-Madinati. In this case, in Arabic, you're not exiting the city. The city is not the direct object. You're exiting from the city. And that word from, min, as a preposition, requires the word after it to be majroor. One of the things that you will all be very good at very soon is to recognize those huruful jar, those prepositions, and you'll be able to recognize that the word after it is majroor. With a little bit of practice, that's easy. It's the rest of the Arabic grammar that you have to worry about. So, خرج النبي من المدينة. Thank you. We'll do number 3. Go. الرجل. But if you read it like that, it's too easy because you're not actually putting on the vowel sound. So what will it be? الرجل. Nabi. Nabiyun. Excellent. الرجل نبي. Right? There's no verb. There's no inna. It's just a subject and a predicate. And when there's a subject and a predicate, they will both be marfu'. And the translation? The man is a prophet. Right? Because it's not an-nabi, it's nabi.
But in the book, there is no, it is not, it is pronounced as alif. There is no dots.
This book does not put the dots. I mentioned that there should be a dot under a ya if it is pronounced as a ya, but then there are some exceptions. Normally, the word nabi will be written like I have written it. But sometimes you will see the word nabi written like that, and it's still nabi. Question? The translation is, the man is a prophet.
Doesn't the article adjective have to match both? I thought if you have an al, it should have to.
When you have a sentence, right, you have a subject and you have a predicate. The subject will usually be definite, meaning it will be ma'arifa, ar-rajul. Because before you have a sentence, you have to know who you're talking about. It's not common for us to say, a man was a prophet. I could say that, but people would say, what's your point? A day was warm. Right? It's not useful to say something like that. So usually the subject of a sentence will be a definite noun. That day was warm. That man was a prophet. It will be a definite noun. The predicate does not need to be definite. They don't need to match. Because I can say that day was a warm day. Or that day was a good day. I can say the man was a prophet. I don't need to say he was the prophet. So a subject will almost always be definite, like this word ar-rajul. A predicate will almost always, but not always, be indefinite. There's no al. Usually it'll be indefinite. Volunteer for the next one. Go ahead.
Kana ar-rajulu nabiyyun.
I think we got it. Kana ar-rajulu nabiyyan. Ar-rajulu, because it's the subject. Nabiyyan, because the object, when there's kana, will be mansub. Translation? The man was a prophet. The man was a prophet.
No. Wow. Why we have to use a?
Because
the man was prophet or
was a prophet, because it's nabiyyan. If I say the man was the prophet, then I'm...
No, not the. I'm just...
No.
A prophet and the prophet is the...
You needed to say the man was a prophet, because it's an indefinite noun. The predicate is indefinite. Next sentence. Volunteer. Go ahead. I heard Muhammadun. Is that what you said? Musa, what's the ending on Musa? Is there a tanween? You're right, it stays as it is.
It's the name.
What's the subject and what's the predicate? Who are we talking about? Muhammad and Musa, there's the subject. And Aina is the predicate. Muhammad and Musa, where are they? Right? I'm talking about Muhammad and Musa. And what I'm saying about them is, where are they? So even though Aina comes first, it's not the subject. Because the subject is the one that I'm talking about. So Muhammad and Musa is the mubtada, the subject. Aina is the khabar, the predicate. So it's Muhammadun, marfu'. Musa is the second subject. Just like Muhammad, it's also marfu'. But why does Musa not have a tanween? Yeah, because not at the end of the sentence. Because this word, you can't pronounce a tanween. It's like quicksand. You put a tanween on it, how are you going to pronounce it? You can't pronounce a tanween on an alif. That is an alif. Okay. So you can't really say Musa. The alif will not be an alif if you put a tanween on it. So therefore, it's not pronounced. But it's still marfu, because it's still, just like Muhammad, the subject of the sentence. It's the mubtada. Aina Muhammadun wa Musa. If instead of Musa, we had written, say, Ali, it would be Aliyun, because it's still the subject, it's still the mubtada. It's just that with the word Musa, you can't show the tanween. Same thing. Aina Musa wa Aliyun. The function is the same. There's just some words that you can't show a tanween on, or you can't show a dhamma on. But the function is the same. It doesn't matter what the order is.
Is there a understanding of when to use the tanween on which word? Because I still don't get it.
That will come with practice,
Okay.
the knowledge of where you use a tanween, where you don't. We'll mention them as we go through. Sentence number 6. Way in the back, sister. إن الرجل لا في المدينة مدينتي إن الرجل في المدينة. That's correct. Inna requires the subject to be mansoob. Fil madinati will be majroor because of the fi. Fi is a preposition. That preposition will make Madina majroor. But the translation is what? There's no enter here. In English you need an is.
Indeed, there is a man.
Indeed, the man is in the city. So be very careful what words you are adding. There has to be a logic to adding a word because it has to be implied in the sentence. In this sentence, how do I know to add is? Well, I know that ar-rajul is the subject. I know that fil madina is the predicate. And in English, between a subject and a predicate, I need to have a verb, right? Is, are, am. And so I will add the word is in this sentence. But I can't add there is or entered or something like that because that's not in the sentence. Okay, so in every Arabic sentence, when you see a subject and a predicate, if there's no verb in Arabic, you will have to supply the verb in English. And the verb will be a form of to be. Is, am, are. And nothing else. Question?
What about was, were, been?
No, those will be shown in Arabic. If you have a past tense verb, that will show up in Arabic as well. Who would like to do the next sentence? Go ahead, sister. So, Aina, Kana, Ahma, Dan, Dun. All right, well, who are we talking about in this sentence? Ahmad is a subject. With Kana, the subject is marfu or mansub? Marfu. With Kana, the subject is marfu. With Inna, the subject is mansub. So the subject is going to be marfu. So that rules out Ahmadan. But it also does not mean that Ahmadun is correct. If you remember, we mentioned that words that sound like Akbar, A'lam, Ahmad, they are غير منصرف. They don't like kasra and they don't like tanween. Ahmad is one of those words. So we will say Ahmadu. Remember غير منصرف? There are certain words that cannot take a kasra, like foreign names. Ibrahim. But they will still have i'rab. So Ahmad, when it is marfu', will not take tanween. It will just take a plain old dhamma. Next sentence. Go ahead.
الرسول في الجنة
في الجنة. You're right that it's going to be majroor. Fil jannati. But because there is an alif lam, we won't say jannatin, we'll say jannati. What did you say on the Rasul? Oh, it has to have something. Ar-Rasul. So we have lu, la, li. The easiest one to rule out is li, because there's no preposition before it, there's no reason for it to be rasuli. We're left with rasulu, ar-rasulu, or ar-rasula. For ar-rasula, the only time when the subject will be mansub is if there is an inna before it. But we don't have inna here. So it'll be marfu. So we'll say ar-rasulu fil jannati. Just the mubtada and the khabar. Subject, predicate. And who will translate that for us? Call it out. The Prophet is in heaven. Right? It's a sentence. Don't just translate the words, the Prophet in heaven. Because if I say the Prophet in heaven, That's not a sentence. This is a sentence in Arabic because it's got a subject and it's got a predicate. Well, heaven in English is a definite noun. That's why you write it heaven. Right? That capital H takes the place of the. Garden. Yes, you can say the prophet is in the garden or the messenger is in the garden. That is correct. Paradise, garden, heaven, all of those translations will be acceptable. And the final sentence. That's correct. Inna Muhammadan fil Madinati. Inna Muhammadan fil Madinati. Translation? In the city. Right. Verily, Muhammad is in the city. Is in the city. Now, for all of those sentences where we've mentioned the Prophet, let's have one loud salawat. Let's go through the next examples now. And I won't take as much time because we want to go through a little bit more quickly. So, as soon as it comes into your mind, call out the answer. Don't wait for me to look at you and then pick on one person. A city. Medina. The city. Al-Madina. In the city. Fil Madina. From the city. Min al-Madina. T. Yes, don't forget that it will be majroor because min is a preposition. So fil Madinati, min al-Madina T. A man, rajul. The man, ar-rajul. From a man, min rajul. Lin, because there's no alif lam, so it can take tanween. And it will be majroor, so it will be min rajul lin. From the man, min ar-rajul li. Not min ar-rajulin, because now that there is an alif lam, it can no longer take a tanween. Ar-rajul li. Right? Both of these are majroor. The jar does not depend on a tanween. The jar is the kasra. It's the kasra that shows that the word is majroor. The word rajul has no alif lam. It's allowed to take a tanween. The word ar-rajul has alif lam. It's not allowed to take a tanween. Next, a garden. Jannah, the garden. Al-Jannah, in the garden. Fil Jannah, T. From a garden. Min Jannatin. Min Jannatin, yes, because it's a garden, there's no alif lam. So there will be tanween. Min Jannatin. Now, number 4, there are sentences. A man entered. Dakhala rajulun. Because rajul is indefinite, no alif lam. Rajulun. The man entered. دخل الرجل. It's not الرجلون. الرجل. The believer entered. دخل المؤمن. المؤمن, because it's the subject, but there's an alif lam, so there's no tanween. Next one. A messenger left. Kharaja. Well, the word for messenger is Rasul properly. Nabi is close, prophet, but we'll use Rasul. Kharaja Rasulun, because it's a messenger. Kharaja ar-Rasul is wrong. Kharaja Rasulun, a messenger left. The messenger left. Kharaja ar-Rasulu. Ahmad left. Kharaja Ahmadu. Ahmadu. Because Ahmad is the subject. You want to say Ahmadun, but then you remember that Ahmad is one of those words that does not like tanween. And it cannot take kasra either. Moses left. Kharaja Musa. And there's no place to put the dhamma, so it stays Musa. Okay, let's translate quickly into Arabic. God created the earth. خلق الله الأرض. Because the earth is being created. You had a 50-50 shot. Next time you'll get it right. You see why it's al-arda? Because the earth was created. It was done to it. It's not doing it. So it becomes mansub. The Prophet entered the city. دخل النبي. We don't need the fi. المدينة تا. دخل النبي المدينة. You can say في المدينة. That's still correct. But the word dakhala in Arabic is used without needing a fi. You can simply say the Prophet entered the city, just like in English. You don't need to say the Prophet entered into the city. So in Arabic you could say dakhala an-nabiyyu, because he's doing it. Al-madinata, because that's the direct object.
And it's Nabiyyu, not Nabiyun, because of the
An-nabiyyu. So it's going to be like this. Where are the prophet? Where are the apostle or the messenger and the prophet? Al-Rasulu wan-nabiyyu. And why are they both u? Because they're both definite, so they will not take tanween. But why not mansub? Why marfu? They're the subject. Ar-Rasul and An-Nabi are together the subject, and the predicate is Aina. The messenger and the prophet, where are they? That's the predicate. The subject and the predicate can be flipped. Because they're the subject. And the subject of a sentence will always will be marfu'. Unless there is an inna or a kana, then that will change the subject or the predicate. Otherwise, both the subject and the predicate, they will both be marfu'. Ahmad was in the garden. Kana Ahmadu fil jannati. Kana Ahmadu, because he's the subject. And kana, the subject, will be marfu. Fil jannati. And Jannah is majroor because of the fi. There's no tanween because it's alif lam. The believer went out of the city. خرج المؤمن من from المدينة المدينة. Min is a harful jar. The word after it will be majroor. خرج المؤمن من المدينة. Muhammad is in the city. Muhammadun fil madinati. Muhammad is in the city. So let's continue by taking a look at lesson number 2. If you look at the notes that we passed out last week, does anybody not have the notes from last week? Anybody else missing last week's notes? Can you look on? Because I think I only have a few extra copies. You can look on? So if you could pass it out in the back to those who don't have it, thank you. And all of these documents are available. If you miss a class, they are available on the Yahoo group. So you can download and print it for yourself as well. If you look towards the bottom, it talks about the preposition li. Preposition li, preposition is harful jar in Arabic. Page 2.
Why you said li? Not lam.
Harful jar. Right? That lamul jar, is pronounced li in Arabic. That one word, li, it will attach to another noun, and it will change the meaning. That preposition can attach to an indefinite noun, so we can attach it to the word kitab, right? And it will become likita bin, because it's a preposition, harful jar. So the word will become majroor. Kitab by itself means book. What does likitabin mean? For a book, or to a book. Li means for or to, or of sometimes. Now, if a word begins with a hamza, in some cases that hamza will be a hamzatul wasl, like the word imra'ah in Arabic. Imra'ah means a woman. This hamza in the beginning of imra'ah, it's hamzatul wasl. Sometimes it's got a little swad over it. What that means is that whenever there's the middle of a sentence, that hamza will not be pronounced. So if I add a lam at the beginning, I won't say li'imra'ah. I'll say limra'ah. I'll pretend that that hamza does not even exist. So that's why it's called wasl, because it's connected right through. It's the invisible hamza. Imra'ah by itself will be pronounced. The hamza will be pronounced. But if the lam comes before it, the hamza will not be pronounced. I will still write it, but I'll pronounce it limra'a, as if that first hamza did not exist. All of you are familiar with this. Do you say Bismillah? Right? No, you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In that case, the hamza from ism, the word is ism, in the name of God. That hamza from ism is not even written. You don't write Bismillah like this. You write it like this. And that's why you'll sometimes see it lengthened. It's written like that. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. To take the place of the hamza that's no longer written. Just so you know, it's not one word, bism, but it's bism. Bi plus ism. And it's only in the phrase Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim altogether that hamza will be dropped in writing. Every other place, the hamza will be written. In limra'a, the hamza will be written. If I write just Bismillah, not Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, the hamza will be written. Right? Another example, the word ibn in Arabic. What does the word ibn mean? Son. Right? If I want to say for a son, I'll say libn. I will not say li'ibn. So if it's hamzatul wasl, then the hamza will not be pronounced. But if it's hamzatul qat', solid hamza, then it will be pronounced. And usually that hamzatul qat' will be written with a little hamza on top, but not always. It will be pronounced. So if I have the word amr, and I add a lam before it, how will I pronounce it? Li'amr. Li'amrillah. If I have the word imkan, and I add a lam before it, how will I pronounce it? Li'imkan. Li'imkan. So if it's hamzatul qat', then it will always be pronounced. Usually, you'll see a little hamza on it, but not necessarily. Usually the hamza will be written, but sometimes it won't. You'll have to know the word. You have to memorize that the word imra'a, that hamza is hamzatul wasl. The word ibn, it's hamzatul wasl. The word ism, it's hamzatul wasl, and it will be dropped. So ism becomes lism, not li'ism. You have to memorize those words. Now sometimes that lam comes to a word that already has a lam in the beginning. Like the word Layla. If I add a lam to it, it will become Li Layla Tin. But if that word Layla that has a lam at the beginning becomes definite, it becomes Al-Layla. Al-Layla. Right? So alif lam, and then the word itself, which starts with a lam. Now we have two lams in a row. If I add a lam to that, what's going to happen is that I'm going to drop the alif, the hamza, out of writing the alif of the alif lam. And I'm not going to add a third lam, that would just look tacky. Instead, I'm going to add a shadda. But often in Arabic, I won't even write the shadda because it's too much work. And so, what you're left with is this. That could be lilaylatin or lilaylati. Sometimes they'll be generous with you and they'll put the shadda if they mean the one with the alif lam. Sometimes they won't. So if you see this, it could be lilaylatin or it could be lilaylati. It'll be written the same way. But if it's from the one that has alif lam, there won't be a tanween. If it's from the one that does not have alif lam, there will be a tanween. The meaning is also different. Lilaylatin means for a night. Lilaylati means for the night. So there is a difference in meaning. Usually the context will tell you, but not necessarily. So this could be lilafzi or lillafzi. Lilafdhin for a word or lillafzi for the word. It'll be written the same way. And of course, any other word that starts with alif lam as well, the same rule will apply. So if I have the word al-kitab, if I want to add lam to it, li to it, it'll become lil-kitab. That alif will be dropped.
That would be lal.
No, not lal-kitab.
Always have to be kasra.
It'll be kasra. Li. Lil-kitabi. Yes, because it's that lam, that second lam there is the lam of the alif lam. So it will not be lil-kitabin, it'll be lil-kitabi. So if the word has alif lam and it doesn't start with a lam itself, you'll see two lams. The alif will be dropped. But if it starts with a lam by itself, we're not going to add a third lam. It'll just be a shadda. And some of the most common usages for the lam are to express possession. So you can say al-ardu lillah. Notice that in lillah, the alif is also dropped. Just like if it was an alif lam. Translate that? Not God's earth, it's a sentence. The earth is God's. So al-ard is a subject and lillah is a predicate. There needs to be an is in the middle. The earth is God's, or the earth belongs to God. Inna, you can say that. You can say inna al-arda lillah. If I have inna, it will be inna al-arda lillah. If I don't put inna, it'll be al-ardu lillah. Al-ardu lillah means the earth is God's. Inna al-arda lillah means indeed the earth is God's. So the meaning is slightly different, the i'rab is slightly different, but no fundamental change. Remember, this is Allah, this is lillah. Okay, let's turn to the worksheet at the end of lesson 2 and quickly take a look at that. Yes, those of you who got it last week, it says worksheet on it, and those of you who printed out after the correction, it says worksheet on it. It's Classical Arabic Lessons 1 and 2. Everybody have a copy of it? Okay, I want to go through this as quickly as possible. So we're going to need everyone to be awake. Let's take these sentences and correct any mistakes that there are in them. Inna Allaha ma'as sabirin. So, Inna Allah ma'as sabirin. Sabirin is the patient ones. Does anybody see anything that needs to be corrected there?
Sabrina. or
Sabirina, yes. That fatha is not i'rab. The plural, the masculine plural, will always end in a noon with a fatha. Right? Whatever its i'rab. Whether it's marfu or mansub or majroor, the masculine plural, as-sabirin, the noon will always have a fatha. So not every fatha is i'rab. So, inna Allaha ma'as sabirin. I don't want to write it, it's going to be confusing. So it is sabirina, but we'll write it like that. Is that okay, that sentence?
no fatha, but we have to.
You can read it. Yeah. Inna Allaha ma'as sabirin. What does it mean?
Allah is with the patient.
Allah is with the patient, indeed. Indeed, Allah is with the patient. Allah, subject, ma'as sabirin, altogether the predicate. That sentence has nothing wrong with it. I would not dare to write a verse of Quran and add a mistake into it. Actually, in the future I might dare to, so look at things carefully in the future. Al-madrasatu kabir. This has a problem, right? Al-madrasatu kabirun. Something is wrong with that. Al-madrasa, is that masculine or feminine? Feminine. So kabir should become kabiratun, as some of you said. Al-madrasatu kabiratun. Subject is al-madrasatu. Kabiratun is the predicate. The school is large. Kabiratun will not take alif lam here because it's the predicate. Right? If it were to take alif lam, it would become al-madrasatu, al-kabiratu, it would become an adjective. The big school.
How do we know that?
That'll become more clear as we practice. It depends on what the purpose of the sentence is. Let's continue, and then if there's any questions, we can come back. Inna aliyun waliyullah. Right? Translate. Verily, Ali is the wali of God, or the friend of God. Anybody see a problem with that sentence? What should be mansub? Ali. The word inna, remember the subject has to be mansub. So Ali should become aliyan. Right? And when we write the aliyan mansub, it has to have an alif added as well. Inna aliyan waliyullah. Waliyullah is fine because that's the predicate. If there were no inna, it would be aliyun waliyullah. That'd be fine, subject and predicate. But when there's inna, inna requires its subject to have nasb. Inna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Inna aliyan waliyullah. Yeah, in the adhan, it's the same. Inna Zainaban mu'mina. Anybody see a problem with that sentence? Zainaban. Why are you saying Zainaban is a problem? It's the subject, right, of inna. The subject of inna should be mansub. Zainab is a feminine name. It's also ghair munsarif. Right? Ghair munsarif means that it does not take tanween. So it will be mansub but we'll say Zainaba. It'll be mansoob because of inna. It'll be inna Zainaba mu'minatun. And then inna Ibrahim ma wa Muhammad. It should be Muhammadan, right? Because Ibrahima and Muhammadan are together the subject. And the subject, if a sentence with inna, should be mansoob. So inna Ibrahima. Ibrahim is mansoob, but it can't take a tanween because it's a non-Arabic name. Muhammadan is a pure Arabic name. It can take the tanween. So it's inna Ibrahima wa Muhammadan nabiyun. Nabiyun. Yeah, dual. Nabiyane. Nabiyane. Right? And I know we did not study the dual, but I wanted just to remind us that there needs to be an agreement. The subject and the predicate need to agree. The subject is dual. The predicate also should be dual. Inna Ibrahima wa Muhammadan nabiyani. Nabiyan. Let's translate into Arabic. I am in the masjid. Ana fil masjid. Very good. Fil masjid. Read the whole sentence with the i'rab. Ana fil masjidi. I am in a large masjid. Ana fi masjidin kabirin. Kabir is an adjective for masjid. So they have to match. Masjidin kabirin. Both are masculine. Both are indefinite. There's no alif lam. Singular, masculine, indefinite, majrur. Zayd hit Amr yesterday. Daraba. So daraba means to hit. The verb comes first in Arabic. Daraba. Zaydun, because he's doing it. Amran. I've tried it with an alif. Ams. Amse. Amse is mabni. It never changes. It's always amse. It's not majroor. That's just the word. You won't say wa amse. Amse is mabni. There are some words that just don't change. You remember that from our last lesson. You see a kasra, don't say why is it majroor. I don't see a fi. It's not majroor. Zainab entered a masjid. Dakhalat. Now, this is something that we will cover. The verb has to be feminine. Dakhala is masculine, dakhalat is feminine. So, dakhalat. Zainab, she's doing it. The subject. Zainabu. No tanween. Zainab will never take tanween because it's a feminine name. So, dakhalat Zainabu. Masjid, she's entering direct object. Masjidan. Right? She's doing the entering. Masjid is being entered. Dakhalat Zainabu masjidan. Hind entered the masjid from a small gate. Dakhalat, yes, Hind is a feminine name. Dakhalat Hindun, she's doing it. Al masjida, right? Because it's the masjid. Al masjida min babin صغير. Yes. Al-masjida, because it is the direct object. Why not al-masjidan? Alif lam, no tanween. Min babin saghirin. Saghir is the adjective describing bab, so they will match. Babin saghirin.
You cannot say Bab is Saghirin.
No, because an adjective will have to match the noun that it describes. So if bab is indefinite, saghir will be indefinite. Hind is a feminine name. Hind takes the tanween because it's only 3 letters, and there are certain exceptional feminine names that do take tanween. Right? I mentioned to you before that everything in Arabic has an exception, and every exception has an exception, just to keep you on your toes. Hind is one of those exceptions. So Hind will take tanween. دخلت هند المسجد من باب صغير. Okay, let's move on. We have some phrases. Rajul kabir. Is that fine? Or is there a mistake in it? Rajulun kabirun. What does it mean? An old man or a big man or a great man. Right? Rajul kabir, they match. It's fine. Imra'a kabir. Kabiratun. Yes, here they need to match, and so if this is feminine, the adjective has to be feminine. Shamsun Mubi. That should actually be written after this. Shamsun Mubi. Shams is a feminine word in Arabic. So the adjective illuminating, it also has to be feminine. So the adjective will have to be mubi'atun. It has to be the feminine sign. Shams, it might not look feminine, but it's treated as a feminine word in Arabic. Qamarun munirun. Does that need to be corrected? Qamar, moon in Arabic, is a masculine noun. So munir is fine. Qamarun munirun. Ardun madhiyun. Ard, as we mentioned, is a feminine noun in Arabic. The adjective needs to be feminine. So we can't say madhiyun, we'd have to say madhiya. Ardun madhiyatun. The only way to know whether a noun is masculine or feminine is to see if it has a sign. Usually a noun with a ta at the end of it is feminine, but not always. In some cases a noun will not have a ta, but it will still be feminine. So in some cases you need to memorize. Sure, we can translate these. So a large or an old man, an old woman. Shamsun mudi'a. Mudi'a means that which gives light. So a sun that gives light. Yeah, a bright sun, for example. Qamar munir, a moon that is reflecting light or giving off light. Ardun madhiya, an earth that is spread forth, that has been expanded. And the last series that we have, translate into Arabic, 2 large hands. What's the word for hands? 2 hands? We can say yadan, or we can say yadain. Right? That's two ways to say the dual in Arabic. We'll talk about that in the future. Is yad masculine or feminine? Pardon me. It is feminine. Remember, we said to consult an anatomist to find out if you have two of them or one of them. If you have two hands, it will be feminine. So, two large hands will be yadane, kabiratane, or yadaine, kabirataine. Two small noses. What's the word for nose in Arabic? Anf. Make that dual. You just add ane, anfane. Small, saghir, and make that dual. Add the same thing. Ithnain, you don't need to in Arabic because the word itself indicates two. So you don't need to add ithnane or ithnain. It's already understood because the word itself is made for two things. So anfane saghirane means two small noses. You can also say anfaine saghirain. Anfaine saghirain. Yes. Nose is anf. Minkhar, I think, is nostril in Arabic. And that will be masculine. There are some words that are masculine even though you have two. Maybe there's some things that Arabs didn't want to think about too much. A new park. What's the word for park? So we'll use the word hadiqa, that's fine. Hadiqa, new. Jadida. Hadiqa, jadida. Because it's feminine, the adjective will be feminine. Two old schools. What's the word for school? Madrasa. Tain or tan. We'll use taine right now. Madrasa taine. Old. Qadim. Qadima. Taine. The adjective is qadim because madrasa is feminine. We'll have to say qadima with the ta at the end. And then because it's two, we'll say madrasa taine, qadima taine. So this is one part. This ta is because it's feminine. The ya and noon is because of the dual. A large new masjid. What's the word for masjid? Masjid. New. Jadid. Will it stay jadid or will we change it? We'll leave it because masjid is masculine. And new and large. Wa kabir. Masjidun, jadidun, wa kabir. The waw, you don't need the waw. It's common in Arabic to separate adjectives with a waw. It's not required. The order is not very important for now. There are some details on the order. We might get to that perhaps in a future lesson. Question?
Is there an exception for words
Alif lam and tanween, no. Alif lam will never come together with tanween. Not everything has an exception. There's an exception to the rule that everything has an exception. And that is the exception. Let us turn to lesson 3. With the exercises, if you have had the chance to look at them ahead of time, then we will be able to go through it at this speed, and hopefully all of us will still be at the same page. So please do take a look at it ahead of time. Don't think that we're going to go through it in class and you're going to see it for the first time in class. I'm going to introduce the third lesson. We'll probably not finish it today. Let's go back and look at how we've put words together so far. Right? So far, if we have these two words, masjid, jadid, right? We can put them together like that. Masjid jadid, masjidun jadidun. What's the relationship between the two? They could be, jadid could be an adjective for masjid, a masjid that is new, a new masjid. Or I could say, al-masjidul jadid, the new masjid. Right? Still an adjective. Now, al-masjid is definite. The adjective needs to be definite as well. I can also say, al-masjidu jadid. Jadidun, dun, din, dun. What would that mean? The mosque is new. Al-masjidu jadidun. Subject, predicate. Mubtada, khabar. There's a third way we can put these same two words together. Right? Or two words together in Arabic. And that is to make one word be attributed to another word or belong to another word. Right? And so if we take, for example, the words bab and masjid, I can say babu al-masjid. In this case, I will say al-masjide. That's one of the places where a word will become majroor. And why will it be majroor? Because in this case, what I'm saying is that masjid is the owner of that door. There's a relationship between these two words. It's not just two words put together. I'm not listing two words, bab, al-masjid, and so on. I'm saying babul masjidi. There's a relationship. Door of the masjid. That meaning of belonging to, that comes from this majroor. It doesn't even have to be a definite noun. I can say babu masjidin. What do you think that means? The door of a masjid. Still the same relationship, door of, but now it's not the masjid, it's a masjid. Door of a mosque, door of a masjid. So this is one type of way to put two words together. There's a relationship between those two words. That is known in Arabic as al-idafa. That's it, I ran out of room. I'll write it down here. Al-idafa. So we're putting two words together by saying one word belongs to another. Let's take a look at the examples that we have in the notes. Notice that the second word will always be majroor, not the first word. The first word is that which belongs to something else. That will not be majroor. That might have a different case. But the word that is the owner, that is the possessor, that, the second word, that will always be majroor. So we can take some examples here. I'll start on the right column. Rasulullahi, the messenger of God. Kitabu Zaydin, the book of Zayd, or Zayd's book. Kitabuna. Na is also owning the book. Na is a pronoun in Arabic that means our. Our book, Kitabuna. It's a pronoun, but it owns the book. The book belongs to the pronoun, or the referent of the pronoun. Abul Qasimi. Abu means the father. Qasim is a name. Abul Qasim, the father of Qasim.
So what is the difference between Abu Qasim and Abul Qasim?
Abul Qasim and Abul Qasim, we'll get to that in the future. Ahlul Bayti. Ahl, people. Al-Bayt, the house. Ahlul Bayti, people of the house. Right? Or a member of the house. Yeah, Zayd is a name by itself, so we don't need to say al before it. We don't need to say az-Zayd. Zayd is a name. Right? Just like Muhammad is a name. We don't need to say al-Muhammad. Adhabun nar, punishment of the fire. Yawmul Jumu'ah, the day of Friday. Qawlu Rasulin. Here the possessing noun is indefinite. Qawlu Rasulin, the speech of a prophet, of a messenger. Mithqalu dharratin, again indefinite, the weight of a particle. Dharra is indefinite. And then we have a phrase, Ahl Bayt T. Here we have two in a row. First is Bayt plus E, the house of me. Bayti, the house of me. And then there is another noun being added to that. The people or the members of the house of me. So we have two in a row. Ahlu Bayti. That's three words actually. The people of the house of me, or member of my house. So it can go like that. A possessive phrase, and I'm reading off the notes now, will have the following characteristics. There will be two nouns. The first will be called mudaf. The second will be called mudaf ilay. The first noun, that is mudaf, will normally be by itself an indefinite noun, like bab, like ahl, like kitab, like rasul. It won't be definite because we're going to attribute it to something else. We're going to ascribe it to something else. That's how it's going to become known. So a book is just a book. But when it becomes the book of God, then it becomes known. So that the mudaf will generally be indefinite. But it will never have tanween, because it's being connected to the next word. So kitab by itself does take tanween. The word kitab, if it doesn't have alif lam, by itself it can accept tanween. But if I'm attributing it to, for example, Zayd, then I will say kitabu Zaydin. I'm not going to say kitabun. Kitabu Zaydin, because it's being connected. And it can have any of the three cases, the first word. You can look at examples. Qala Rasulullah. Rasulullah, because he is doing the saying. Qala Rasulullah, the messenger of God said. Waqina. Qina in Arabic means protect us. Don't worry about the grammar of it, we'll come to it later. But protect us from something, and adhaban nar is what we want to be protected from. In Arabic it's an object. Adhaban nar. Or min adhabin nar. In this case, min will make it majroor. So the first word, mudaf, can be marfu or mansub or majroor depending on where it is in the sentence. The second part will always be majroor, genitive. The second noun is called mudaf ilayh. It is usually definite, but it can be indefinite. Right? We can say qawlu rasulin or qawlur rasuli. The second noun can be definite or indefinite. Usually it's definite. But I can say the speech of a prophet, or I can say the speech of the prophet. Both are possible. And the second noun, the mudaf ilayh, will always be majroor. And as I mentioned, you can have a series of mudaf and mudaf ilayh that follow one another. So in this case, we have Miftahu Babi Baytillahi. The first one is also a mudaf ilayh, right? Because it's owning something belongs to it, it will be majroor. And then all of the remaining ones will be majroor as well. Sorry? It will be miftahu, that will depend on what the rest of the sentence is. So Miftahu Babi Baytillah. Allah has a bayt. That bayt has a door. That door has a key. We might even go further, for example, and say that, for example, the key has an owner. So we'll say, and I don't have room here, Sahib. Right? Sahibu Miftahi. Allah has a house which has a door, which has a gate, which has a door, which has a key, which has an owner. Right? That owner might have a mother, and that mother might have and it can go on and on. Right? In that case, Allah will be mudaf ilayh. Bayt will be mudaf. But bayt will be a mudaf ilayh of bab. Because the bab belongs to the bayt, to the house. And we will conclude there for today. Please recite salawat.